right, there you go.
Hello and welcome. My name is Christine, and I work in our family development program and housing at MAHUBE-OTWA. Today, we're live to celebrate Black History Month by hosting an interactive conversation with two community leaders. But before we introduce our guests, let me cover some facts about Black History Month, MAHUBE-OTWA, and some demographics. So Black History Month started as a week in 1926. Carter G. Woodson, a Harvard-educated historian, and Minister Jesse Moreland founded what is now known as the Association for the Study of African American Life. This organization established Negro History Week, which strived to inspire schools and communities to organize local celebrations and host performances and lectures. The second week in February was chosen to coincide with two birthdays. President Lincoln, the 16th U.S. president that paved the way for the end of slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation, and Frederick Douglass, who had escaped slavery, was an activist, author, and prominent leader in the abolitionist movement to end slavery. The civil rights movement in the 1960s helped elevate Negro History Week to a national recognition, and then it was extended into a month-long celebration. In 1976, President Gerald Ford made an official proclamation proclaiming February to be Black History Month. And today, Black History Month is a time to honor the contributions and legacy of African Americans across U.S. history and society, from activists and civil rights pioneers to leaders in industry, politics, science, culture, and more. MAHUBE-OTWA is a community action partnership agency that was established in 1965 after President Lyndon Johnson declared a war on poverty during his 1964 State of the Union address. MAHUBE today has 5 main administrative offices that are located in Mahnomen, Hubbard, Becker, Otter Tail, and Wadena counties. We also provide additional services to 15 other counties. And details about this history and map of our counties and that we serve can be found on our website at mahube.org if you're curious about the specifics. We have some demographic information about our Black populations in the MAHUBE service areas and in the U.S., and this is according to the U.S. Bureau in 2023. So in Becker County, there is a population of 3,416 total, and out of that, we have 247 individuals. In Otter Tail, we have 973 individuals. Hubbard, 128, Mahnomen, 36, Wadena, 155, and Beltrami, 416. So we have like a total population of close to 2,000 in our service areas. And more, we have more service areas, but that's just a snapshot. So in the United States, Black individuals make up about 13.6% of the total population. So now let me introduce our guests today. Today we have with us Victoria McWayne Creek and Ashley Charwood. And Victoria, if you don't mind, would you get started off by introducing yourself and talking about your work and how you identify yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine, for having me here today, and to MAHUBE-OTWA for hosting this conversation. I am Victoria McWayne Creek, and I live in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I am the founder of Organization for Full Participation, and we are a performance improvement and organizational effectiveness firm. We focus on equitable results through policy, practice, and situation analysis, and then we provide coaching, guidance, and facilitation for strategic interventions that close equity, knowledge, performance, and skills gaps. Our values are identity, intersectionality, inclusion, and intentionality for the work that we do here. My partner and I have lived in Otter Tail County, in West and East Otter Tail County, since 2006. And we've raised 2 children to adulthood and are enjoying our lives here in Fergus Falls without our young offspring in the house now. Thank you so much.
I can
Ashley.
introduce.
Could you introduce
Sure,
yourself?
I can introduce myself. I'd be happy to. Thanks, Victoria, for sharing a little bit more about yourself and your family and about the important work that you are doing to uplift others in the region. And I also like to thank MAHUBE-OTWA. I love CAP, I love community action programs. And so thank you for the amazing work that you're doing in community as well. I will introduce myself by saying I'm Ashley Charwood. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I identify myself as a transracial adoptee. I was I was raised by a white family in northern Minnesota. And so I grew up in a lot of small rural communities. So Walker, Minnesota, I spent some time in Bacchus, and the majority of my growing up years was in Bemidji, Minnesota, which is centrally located between three of Minnesota's largest tribal nations, White Earth, Red Lake, and Leech Lake. I ended up leaving the traditional high school setting in Bemidji when I was about 14 years old. It just wasn't the setting for me to be in at the time, and I became a teen parent when I was 17. I'm also the oldest sibling to five amazing Black women. I'm the mother of four biracial children who are Black and Ojibwe. I am a social work faculty member at Bemidji State University, where I teach across the curriculum in the social work department. I'm also the only Black faculty here at Bemidji State University, and I say that not as a source of pride, but as a source of wanting to point that out. When things are pointed out, they're a lot harder to ignore. And then I am a doctorate student at Tulane. I'm in year two. And so I am researching anti-oppressive pedagogy in undergraduate social work programs. And so Tulane is a school that is down in Louisiana. I am a board member of Project for Change, which is a local Bemidji-based, newly founded grassroots organization that's goal is to uplift the Black and Brown community and bring people together across racial, cultural, and gender differences. So although it is Black-led, it's really all about bringing people together to build community, build relationships, and also strategize and respond in the moment when needed. And um, and so I'm really proud to be one of the co-founders of Project for Change. And then I've been married for, I think it's 18 years to my amazing husband who lives in Bemidji with me and also is a citizen of White Earth Nation. So today, despite some of those identifiers and groups that I'm a part of, I'm just representing myself today. So happy to be here.
You. I apologize for dropping off for a second. Thank you both, Victoria and Ashley. So we have some questions, about a series of 5 to 6 questions. And let's see, for the first one, the first question, you can both answer this one. If Victoria, you want to go first? What does Black history mean to you?
Yeah, so I've given this a little bit of thought. And for me, this is an opportunity for us as a community, as a nation, to focus and highlight the contributions of Black people to the advancement of our communities and nation. We have been creating, developing, engineering, building, writing, composing, teaching, researching, and leading some of the most important foundations of US history, culture, and technology. And so for me, Black history is every day. However, during the month of February, it is all about uplifting and highlighting those contributions.
Excellent, thank you. Ashley?
Sure, I can add on a little bit to that. I agree that it's about celebrating and as a community coming together to really understand, reflect on the history, reflect on the accomplishments, the strengths, and the survival of Black people. I think to me, Black History Month means really celebrating all things Black. And so that means Black hair, like that means just Black joy, Black excellence. It means uplifting, Black love. It means prioritizing the way that we're spending our dollars. Again, like something we should be thinking about all year, being conscious consumers. But I think during Black History Month, it's important to be even more mindful of like where are the dollars being spent in the community, reinvesting in, or just even starting to invest in Black and Brown communities. I also think when I think about Black history, there's an African Adinkra symbol that's called Sankofa. And it's an image of like the Sankofa bird, which is like it's facing one direction, but its neck is facing the other direction. And to me, that's also what Black History Month means. It means understanding Sankofa, which is how the past influences the present. So it's looking back into the past, but at the same time, looking forward and reflecting on past generations, taking those lessons learned and understanding how that will inform the present and the future. So I think that's part of what Black History Month is like looking back, learning these lessons, planting seeds for the next set of leaders. I also think Black History Month to me means understanding not just the strengths, but also the struggles. So yes, Black joy, Black strength, Black hair, but also acknowledging some of the struggles and thinking specifically about some of those leaders who were just everyday, natural, like people. Like it doesn't have to be these like famous figures, but like really celebrating Black history amongst the Black families and the uncles, aunties, the kids who survived and thrived. So I think that to me is part of Black History Month too, is like reflecting on uplifting some of those voices too.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so I have a second question. Victoria, how do you think terms Black and African American, and what do you, or what do you think of those terms, or how do you navigate those terms?
Excuse me, the term Black to me really is all about the social construction of race, right? There had to become a Black in order to differentiate and designate white as so-called superior. And I think recognizing that is part of what we need to be able to do, is that there are no major biological differences. It is simply a tool of white supremacy in order to how do I want to say this? In order to minimize or marginalize the contributions and efforts that people who have brown and Black skin have contributed. The term African American to me is all about ethnicity, right? It's about where we come from and lineage and things of that nature. And so honestly, if you think about it, for me, you can look at me and see that I am not a 100% pure-blooded African from descendant. So in order to really accept all of the identities, the ethnicities that contribute to me, I would have to be an Euro or an Euro, whatever my ethnicities are, in order to make that really something that is reflective of who I am in the totality of my humanness. So I struggle, or I should say, I have struggled to, identify myself with either or of those terms. I really feel like I'm a human who has brown skin and has histories and lineages that scan the globe. And I show up though and am seen as a Black woman in the United States. And that is what it is. But it's helpful for me to know that these terms, all of them, are made up and don't necessarily reflect who I am and what's valuable to me.
Thank you.
I should also say that in terms of identity and who I want to be and portray, I have been proudly Black with a capital B my entire life, if that makes sense.
Sure. Ashley, did you want to add, or?
Yeah, I will. Definitely that last part. I mean, it all resonated with me. That last part, though, yes. I feel like Black is me, as well, with a capital B. I love that. I identify as Black, as a Black person. Growing up in the 80s, I had heard people say, "You're Afro-American," and that never quite resonated with me, but I do understand that words change over time and just society's view, society's take on words do change over time. I'm also not a fan of if somebody were to call me colored, but I do know that in some communities in other parts of the world, colored is how people might be identified. And so for me, growing up in northern Minnesota, colored for some reason just doesn't quite sit with me. It does make me think about like some negative connotations about like separate water fountains and bathrooms and pools. But at the same time, there are many people, including elders, who they might identify as a colored individual. And so I think it's important to use the language that people are using. Even thinking about the NAACP. I mean, what does the C stand for in that? So I've been thinking a little bit differently around how do I identify? And lately there's been conversation around like people of color. So I can understand that too. If you're talking specifically about Black people, Black or brown people, I would say to name Black people. If you're talking about Indigenous people, name that rather than this overarching umbrella term. But I'm okay with people of color. At the same time, I have siblings who were born in Haiti and they have a lot of melanin. And so for them, though, they might not specifically identify as African American. They might say they're Haitian American. So I think it's important to, again, be mindful of like using the words that people are using. I also have a sister who was born in Liberia, and she is African American, and that's how she identifies, being born in Africa, living in America. So I think people have different words, people, and even in my sibling group of five, there's different ways that we're describing ourselves. I did take an ancestry test, DNA test, because I wasn't able to know my history, like many people who were engaged in or who were forced to take part in the transatlantic slave trade. And there's some information about like Ghana, Nigeria. So I hold on to that. I do want to make it to the homeland eventually. That is important to me. And I'll also name that like my kids are Black and Native American. And so they all have identified themselves in different terms too, whether it's Afro-Indigenous or Blative, and they each take ownership of these words in different settings. And so I just again think it's important to use the words that people are using. Another kind of series of words that people are saying when asking like how do people identify is people of the global majority. Just thinking that the world, that the country, the world is becoming more brown, and so that Black and brown people are the majority, and so to think about the minority majority words and just using that, thinking about the word choice around minority and majority. So some people have said people of the global majority. Another series of terms that I've heard is ADOS. So like a African descendant of someone who was enslaved. And so some people identify as that because it does connect people to Turtle Island, connect people to America, and have a long history of helping build and shape and hands in the ground with America. And so if you're looking at places like St. Cloud, the majority of the melanated individuals in like St. Cloud, for example, were not descendants of people who were enslaved. And so I think that's where there's just different word choices that are used to help describe the experiences of people. But again, I would say use the words of the of the people. And ultimately, I identify as a Black woman, even though I know I have some like, European, some Indigenous ancestry. I just feel like when people see me and how I hope to see myself, how I envision myself as just a Black American woman.
You. I know it's always person first, it's human first, and then we all have a lot of identities that we that we have within us. And it's always important, I know, to ask people, so, and let them decide. Thank you. So, Ashley, this is a three-part, it's kind of a three-part question in a sense, but, and you can both participate in this one, but I'll start with Ashley, if you don't mind. What actions are you seeing in the community around equity and anti-racism, and specifically for addressing racism against people of African heritage? Where are we making progress? Where are we slipping? And how can folks get involved? So, and I can repeat that, the other two questions, but the first off, where are we making progress?
That is a deep, lengthy question.
Yeah,
I think I think progress is being made with various like equity frameworks that organizations are using, or that institutions are using, or that like academia are using. Like BSU has a 2020-2030 equity related goals, which have measurable benchmarks on like how are we achieving equity as far as diversifying staff and students, retaining staff and students. And so I feel like there's more talk on like measuring some of these. So I feel like that's a good place to start, to be able to have some benchmarks. I think one of the things that I'm doing is I organize 6 DEI related events in the region. And I will say sometimes there's 80 people, sometimes there's 4 people. And so I also do look around to see like, are elected officials present, like who is present at these places. But I feel like there is a lot more opportunity to engage, whether it's on virtual Zoom sessions like this, or whether it's actually going and being in community. So I think progress is being made that way. I think there has been some conversation around thinking about DEI and then also anti-racism efforts, anti-Blackness efforts. And so I feel like we're having more language to describe what it is that we're trying to do and be and measure. On another note, there's progress being made like to connect it specifically to the work that I do in social work. We have our accrediting body is the Council of Social Work Education, and we have these licensing standards. And this is something that is done across the nation, across the United States. We have these standards, and they're pretty specific about what social workers need to be doing to continue to move the needle and make progress. So they have wording around understanding racism and oppression.
Oh, I think we might have lost Ashley for a moment.
Oh. Well, I'm happy to chime in a little bit.
Sure, Victoria, go for it.
To rejoin.
And how that shapes the human experience.
Oh, there she is.
She's back.
Oh,
We
internet
lost you for a
unstable.
moment, Ashley.
So yeah, I just think like with the CSWE EPAS, we have specific words that we're supposed to be teaching in the classroom around white supremacy, around anti-racism, around understanding the societal and historical roots. And so I feel like that helps when we have a framework to use, when we have the words to use. And then I think other groups like the National Association of Black Social Workers is doing some good work around making progress, but also creating opportunity to go back and get that knowledge and wisdom. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of decent ways that we're making progress. We're looking at exploring a multicultural pathway with an Indigenous and Afrocentric lens within social work. So I feel like initiatives like that are helpful and making people feel like their identity is seen and validated and like they belong, especially in northern Minnesota when it can be isolating, and you read the data around some of the numbers. And so to have programming that's specific with that Afrocentric lens, I think can be helpful. So I'll pause there before we can talk about like slipping and how to get involved, and just turn it back over to you, Christine or Victoria.
So I would love to chime in on what is progressing in this area. And I think that there is particularly within the study and the implementation of that promotes equitable outcomes, which is ultimately what we want to get at. I think that there is some movement to do more than say we're a welcoming community or we're inclusive, because we know that we can be present but not be heard. We can be present and not included, and we can be present and or we can be present, heard, and contribute to the development of ways to which we can reach those measurably equitable outcomes. And because we have had such a long history of woven anti-Blackness in every system that is of the United States, it becomes really important that we are looking at these from a systems, this progress from a systems level for me. So some of the things that Ashley was talking about, you know, how the social work processes in education are shifting to build awareness of those individual social workers through a systematic approach to this. And so the more that we can do that kind of work, the more we can then measure, have metrics that can demonstrate that we are seeing less racist outcomes because people's individual beliefs and behavior. We want to be able to influence people's behavior, encourage anti-racist behavior, discourage racist behavior through the implementation of legislation. So things like the Crown Act, where you can't discriminate against a person because of their hair, of the texture, or the way it presents. Though we still see today that there are many, particularly school-age children, who are actively discriminated against about their hair. So being able to pass legislation and create the incentives and the things that will also de-incentivize behavior are things that I think are positive and progressive in what is happening. Articulating that is not a one size fits all, being explicit about what it is that we will accept and not, and actually passing the legislation, approving policies, practices, and procedures that enhance outcomes.
That's good. Specifics are good. I was almost going to ask for an example, but you called it the Crown Act?
Yes.
That's what it's called, Crown Act. Okay. That is specific. Okay. And okay, where are we slipping? That might be a long time too, but if we could maybe some examples or some like where you feel we're slipping and we could do much better.
So I will start with that one, if you don't mind, in that there are multiple levels that we have to be operating on at all times if we are going to actually eradicate anti-Blackness and racism and improve the lives of those of us who have been marginalized in our communities and country. And in order to do that, we need to be working on multiple levels. We have the inner work and the individual level that we have to do, where we are exposing ourselves to difference, engaging in those more difficult conversations, and stretching ourselves so that we can recognize that just because we feel a certain way doesn't mean that we get to act a certain way, right? So that's that individual level. We need to be working at the institutional level. So like the college, like Bemidji, like M-State here in Fergus Falls, we have to also be able to look in our institutions, which we are not really good at, disaggregating our data so that we can really see what is happening. We're not great at that either. We like to jumble everything together and say, well, on average, here's what's happening. But if you disaggregate that data, and you will see that certain populations, whether they're LGBTQ, Black, Indigenous, disabled, have very different experience and outcomes within our institution. So we have to be able to break down the data at the institutional level and be willing to acknowledge that there are gaps with outcomes and do what is necessary to close those gaps so that race is not a predictor of success or an outcome. So we could do a lot better there. And then additionally, at the systems level, where our institutions are operating and have that way of covering everything, we have to be able to do that very same thing. So our communities need to take a look at the data. What's happening with law enforcement? What's happening with assistance? What's happening with healthcare? What's happening with education? And be able to break all of that down, understand what is happening, so that then we can identify where we want to go, what the ideal state is for us, and create a plan that will allow us to close that gap by being really strategic and intentional about identifying one or two opportunities that we can do strategic improvement upon and see outcomes within, immediate or a year, so that we can then move on to another aspect. So we have to be really strategic and intentional about how we are approaching this, and not use that shotgun approach and just try things and build awareness, so to speak, because there are lots of things that we can do to build awareness, but we have to get to action. And that is where the opportunity to measure, to increase equity across experiences.
That's important, across experiences. I like that too. Ashley, did you want to contribute on where you think we're slipping?
I mean, I would definitely echo everything that Victoria was saying. And I think like that changing hearts and minds is one thing. I think that connects to the interpersonal level, like doing that inner work, understanding oneself and their own identity, I think is part of the healing and growing work. So I think, yeah, changing hearts and minds, and then working within your sphere of influence to have those conversations, to strategize. I think there is some slippage happening with like imagining the policy work that needs to be done. And so I think there's a lot of good efforts that are being made. But even to think like the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act was passed in 2022. And so sometimes policy is slow. And so that's where I think we're slipping. I don't know what could be done about that. Maybe having those conversations with elected officials. I know I ended up sending in a written testimony about the Crown Act. So I think doing things like that to help lessen the government and the elected officials and the policies from slipping could be something that we could do. I think we're slipping in that microaggressions are still continuously happening. And I know that we're humans and we make mistakes and we have the opportunity to learn and grow. And so I think that is an area that we're slipping in the healthcare field. That's been studied around the racial microaggressions that people are experiencing when they go to the doctor, around the experiences that they're facing when they go to the grocery store. And these microaggressions over time, this has been studied, impacts people's health and their life expectancy. And so I feel like we're slipping when we are subjecting people to continue to show up in systems that habitually wound them. So I think we're slipping with that. This last thing that I'll say, well, I guess I have two more things, but this next thing I'm going to say might be, it might come across differently, but I will say that I think we're slipping in certain professions by not gatekeeping the profession. And so what I mean by that is, I would always say, if you want to be a doctor, like, yes, let's make that happen. If you want to be a social worker, yes, let's make that happen. There's a spot for you. But I think we're also doing a disservice when we're letting everyone in when maybe they're racist and they're sexist. And do we want racist doctors? Do we want racist social workers? So that's what I mean by gatekeeping. Like I don't like the idea of saying no and like you're not able to be in here. I just think we need to like pause a little bit because there's so much harm that can happen when we're not like protecting some of the core of these professions. So I know that can be uncomfortable to think about, but that's kind of been my perspective lately is like doing a better job of like who are we licensing as doctors if they, there's inner work that needs to be done first, I think. So that could be kind of a controversial view of things, but for now I'm standing by it. And I'm willing to change that view too through conversation, but I just think we need to be protective of professions because of the ability to perpetuate harms. So that's what I mean by not gatekeeping enough. And then the last thing I'll say where we're slipping is like not thinking globally as good as we should. Like we are global citizens. So I think it's important to really think globally and see the humanity in others and then act locally. Whether it's being a conscious consumer, a conscious spender, traveling when we can, if you can. I think that's part of the slipping that is happening is just not really thinking as a global citizen. I'll end with that. But Victoria, did you want to say something?
So this whole idea of gatekeeping, I can appreciate where it comes from. And I think as a matter of my opinion, that the way in which to ensure that folks come out of the other side of their training for whatever discipline it is, that there is a really intentional instructional design and teaching and facilitating for learning that would allow folks to do that inner work that is necessary to come out on the other side less racist, right? Less apt to cause harm because they have done some of that inner work that's necessary in order to recognize that most of the time the issue is within inside ourselves and not necessarily another person outside of it. I would wonder how you would implement such a practice of gatekeeping that is actively screening out people who may cause harm. I don't know how that would work. I mean, we've had affirmative action. We had affirmative action for white people for a long time. We had affirmative action for those of us who have traditionally been excluded for a short period of time. And it really did work for white folks, right? You got the Homestead Act, you've got the FHA, the GI Bill, all of that really did work. But I wonder how you would actively, I just wonder in such a conscious way. That is interesting to me. I have to think about that a little more. I've never heard it until right now.
And I'm not a fan of overall of gatekeeping because I know people have been kept out of certain professions and schools and employment settings. And so like it's kind of a tricky thing to think about, but I do think within our sphere of influence, like if you are on different groups or committees, like we can have conversations or even to build relationship if we see a colleague or a peer that's participating in some not very pro-social activities, to be able to build that relationship with them and have a conversation around like, this is what was said, this is what was done, how can we do better, how can we show up differently to mitigate that. So I think part of it is putting the onus on us within our sphere of influence to have those conversations too, which can be uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. And being able to I think what I really liked about what you just said is each one of us recognizing and then basically stepping in and intervening on behalf of ourselves, another, and even the person who is causing the harm, to take that moment and help that person grow and recognize that they have had such a negative or harmful impact. At the same time, it's a tiring thing to do.
I was going to say
Right?
that.
It's exhausting to be the person who offers that legitimate critique of action and encourage someone to do better.
It definitely is. And it's like emotional and mental labor too. And
Mhm.
so it's okay to pick and choose, I feel like, because if you can't respond to things 20 times a day, and then you have to do the mental gymnastics of like monitoring what you're saying and how is this going to be received. So it's definitely a delicate balance.
Yeah. A relationship, like relationship building, because you can't expect, yeah, you can't expect that out of friends and colleagues, right? To be one-sided one way all the time. It's like group work in a sense. It's like not expecting, but building that relationship. That's how I kind of see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're expecting that we are all going to contribute to making our society one that honors each other, that that causes no harm, right? Do at the very least does not cause harm.
that's not karma. That's a great goal. That's a standard it should be at. Yeah. And yeah, in human services, working in with people, that would seem that's the top priority is you need to know how to work with people, all people. Yeah. Thank you. Um, we're on a roll. How can folks get involved besides what we've just talked about? You know, um, and there's all levels, I'm sure, but maybe, doing that inner work, that's important.
I
How
think it's
other way?
doing the inner work, joining local efforts, um, thinking about your time, talent, and treasure, like whether that's spending time, getting to know yourself, getting to know others, whether that's contributing your talent, things that you're good at, whether that's financially being a part of a local effort. So I feel like that could be a part of it, being mindful of where you're banking, thinking about some of the membership organizations that are out there or grassroots organizations and helping to support them, protesting, engaging in writing letter campaigns, rallying, marching, speaking up in ways that are meaningful, having conversations with people around your kitchen table is, I think, part of what people can do. Being conscious of where you're spending your dollars, don't shop where you're not welcomed. I think that's something that people can do, or don't support businesses that are harmful to other people. I also think looking at policy. So there's even some policies around, like, really you're at a nonprofit and there's policies around who you, or even at PSU, for example, policies around like catering and who you can cater from. But I think we could tweak the policies to be like, yes, we need to use this company and we'll delegate like 20% of the opportunity to be from a local business owner, woman-owned business owner, BIPOC business owner. Like I feel like we have the creativity to change policy at like a small local level and at a national level. I think attending events, supporting scholarships, being a mentor, lifting as you climb are all other techniques and tactics that people can do. I'll pause.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to just expand on that policy piece that you were speaking about, because that is where the structure, those structural components within the area of your influence. So those places that you work, live, and play. There are tools out there, businesses, mine is one of them, that can help you assess those components of policies, practices, procedures, and situations that lead to equitable outcomes. There are tools that can be implemented to assist in this process of becoming anti-racist as an organization and approaching work, life, and play in a way that, again, does no harm at the very least. There are ways in which we can, particularly Organization for Full Participation, can coach and guide you through these processes so that you can create an immediately executable plan to act and improve the outcomes. We have got to move from awareness building as the goal to actively doing and experimenting, because there will be some fails. So I call it experimenting with shifts in behavior, in practice, in perspective, so that we can get a different outcome. Not all of them are going to work. So we have to also be able to create conditions within our organizations and our communities that will allow for failure, because we get to learn from failure. We get to grow from failure, and we get to understand what to do a little bit different next time. So being open to taking those risks is something that we all have to do, whether that risk is a conversation across political belief systems, across race, whatever. Being able to take those risks, try things on, take what works, or as my grandmother used to say, chew the meat, spit out the bone. Just do what is going to attempt to do your best, learn from that, and then get on to the next little experiment.
That's important, I think, is not to be afraid of failure and learn from it, but do it,
Exactly.
be brave.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that recently. It's not always safe conversations or feeling safe. It's being brave. It's feeling uncomfortable, and and also you grow from not being comfortable all the time. So that's encouraging. Thank you. So we got about 15 minutes left, and I just wanted to let everyone know that they can definitely add some questions for you in Facebook Live. They can add some questions and we can try to answer them. I have about 3 more questions. This one is Juneteenth is a newish federal holiday, and how do you recommend organizations in our region recognize it? Victoria, do you want to start? If you want, you can
Yeah,
talk.
so honestly, the Juneteenth as a national holiday is one of those things where we were asking for reparations, and they gave us a holiday, which in my life, I've always celebrated Juneteenth as a day of rest. It's an opportunity to honor those who have come before and who could not rest, right? And celebrate that we're still here despite all of that. So for me, when I think about what could an organization do in order to uplift and recognize that, is to really get in touch with the grief of what Juneteenth is. It's a day of mourning for many, in that we are taking the time to acknowledge that for a particular group of folks, the proclamation, whatever it is that Lincoln did, the Emancipation Proclamation, took multiple years to reach everybody. That's atrocious. So it's an opportunity to really learn and to tap into that, and for me, that ancestral realm of knowledge and understanding that can allow you to feel and grieve and mourn for those who came before. And how do we process and metabolize that grief, because it holds us back. So I don't know exactly how an organization can do that. But it really, for me, starts about acknowledging that this is a very, very mournful, jubilant, but mournful recognition. Day of recognition.
Right.
Ashley.
Yeah, I agree. I recently heard that a perspective too around like it wasn't a day for this individual to like celebrate completely, because it was a sense of mourning and loss, and just really thinking about how long it took for groups to get the message, and to think too, like you were saying, Victoria, around what were people asking for? Well, reparations, and then what were people given this federal holiday off, and is that really what they were asking for? So I think it's important to think on Juneteenth about reflecting on the past. How does this inform our current reality? How can we move forward in the future? I think like my sister, for example, works at a hotel. She doesn't get like Juneteenth paid off or anything like that. Unless it might happen to fall on a Sunday or something, but she works Saturdays too. So it's like, who is getting paid off time for this holiday? And so I think that's something that organizations could do, is to maybe provide some financial support or mutual aid efforts to individuals in those situations. I also think, spending that time being in community could be helpful. Volunteering, giving back, not tokenizing people. I think that's a strategy that I would hope that organizations are doing, is like not saying we have this one or two or how many ever people, let's go to them and put the microphone in their face as the expert, but like really being mindful of the physical, mental, emotional labor that people are thinking about on that day. And so just to be mindful with how we're approaching individuals. But I do think it's a combination of like recognition, remembrance, sadness, and also a time to acknowledge that people are still here, thriving, doing important things. But yeah, and to not feel, hopefully the organizations aren't just being super performative and having just this lip service of putting out a statement, but then when Black and brown people go to their building, how are they really welcomed and included? And so I think that's important too, to make sure that organizations like values and beliefs and statements match their actions too. So a couple of thoughts on that.
Thank you. All right, that's kind of in line, but if you could each kind of give your perspective on what is allyship? What is allyship to you?
Do you want to go first, Ashley?
Sure. I think allyship to me, I do know people who I consider to be allies, and I feel like they show up, they are aware, they notice, they pay attention, um, they they are doing things that, like I was saying earlier, aren't like performative or for clout or for the recognition. I think allyship is not taking, a lot of space, not talking over, not doing for, but really like passing the microphone, listening, pointing out the strengths in other people. I think allyship is putting the dollars where you see like giving the dollars to communities that then they can use the dollars in ways that make sense for their community. I think allyship is making sure that your own beliefs and values match your behavior, not being a savior, not coming into communities with all of the answers and the experiences and all of the wisdom, but really pausing, suspending that judgment, leaning in with genuine curiosity, listening to the voices of people that are directly impacted by the issue, I think are characteristics of what an ally is. I also think, and I'm not saying anybody should do this, but really thinking critically around like, I'm just thinking about like the civil rights movement and the question of like, what would you be willing to get arrested for? Like, I know I'm not pushing that mentality out there on anybody, but like, if there are people that are being disenfranchised and that policies are being made that directly impact them and put their life on the line, like, we do need allies to come forward and help navigate some of that. And so I do think through around like, what are people's values and like, what would they really stand for? Like that to me is true allyship. Like, when people are putting maybe their livelihood on the line
Mm,
too. So,
yeah. So to me, when I think about everything that you've said is absolutely part of my thought process. And also thinking about it as a first, you can't call yourself an ally. That's something that if someone offers to you, be based on the actions that you've taken. And so it's a continuous act of creating that space and opportunity for folks, Black folks who have been marginalized, underestimated, and devalued to be meaningfully included in all aspects of the decision-making process through identification of an issue to funding it to the resources that are required in order to move things along, space with power to do so, sharing that power, not just amplifying a voice, but actually, you know what, I'm going to get up from the table and give this seat to someone else that actually has, and it has, that is impacted directly by this issue. It is about being able to be curious. It's about being, for me, I prefer accomplice. I want you to get your hands dirty, right? We're going to go through this together. You have as much to give and gain as I do, and you have as much to lose as I do. We are in this together. Whereas an ally to me can sit on the side and do lip service. They can say the right things and get those pats on the backs for performing, but actually never get their hands dirty. And I think that for me is really what we want to see if we are going to get to that place where race is not a predictor of an outcome. We're going to have to share power. You're going to have to give up some power. You're going to have to lose some things. And that's tough. That's hard to accept. But if you're an ally or an accomplice, you have accepted that that is the reality.
That is great. That is important. We have maybe 3 minutes left. This has been great. I appreciate, and I'm very grateful for both of you for all your contributions. And I just want to make sure I say that in case we get cut off for any reason. But I guess our last few minutes. I was going to ask who has inspired you in accordance with history or your family history or in our U.S. history that you might think of in Black History Month specifically, I guess. A hero or an unsung hero.
I have two.
Okay.
The first of which is Lily B. Cooper, my grandmother. And she used to say, if you can't beat them, brick them. And I used to take that literally, and I would fight physically. As I've grown wiser and older, I have taken that much more figuratively and use my words to convey that which needs to be said. So for just being able to say what you need to say to the people that need to hear it in a way that they can get it so we can get things done, right? That's what it's about. So I really appreciate her for that. And then Toni Morrison said that I stood at the edge and claimed it as central and waited for the world to move.
That's beautiful.
That phrase of being at the center of it, no matter who you are, but as Black people, to be the center of it and wait for folks to move and in accordance with that is something that has moved me.
Thank you.
there is a lot of people I would want to uplift. I'm glad that you had mentioned Carter G. Woodson. I think I've been really leaning into the work of Ida B. Wells and her Red Road, just documenting anti-lynching efforts and like how it wasn't necessarily due to different assaults that were happening, but it was due to like jealousy of Black wealth building and business ownership. and land ownership. So I think it's important that she had shared that narrative and that story and documented it. And so I would really like to uplift her. And then Whitney Young is a Black social worker with Minnesota connections. I think he taught at the University of Minnesota at one point, but he worked at Clark Atlanta University, which is a historic Black college and university down in Atlanta, Georgia. He was one of the Big Six who helped lead the March on Washington, and just a really amazing, inspiring person. And so I think to do a deeper dive on him would be cool. I had brought up, I don't know if I brought up Bell Hooks, but Bell Hooks is somebody who I have been researching lately too as a part of my social work degree. She had a framework on teaching to transgress, just thinking about how educators are showing up in the classroom and sharing power and laughing and having fun, but also having critical conversations. And so I've been really inspired by Bell Hooks and her framework. And then lastly, I'll say Resma Menachem, Black Minnesota social worker from the metro area, does a lot of work on racialized body trauma. So I've also brought some of those techniques into the classroom, whether it's like humming, communal humming together, or standing up and moving our body, just being aware of our surroundings. I think it's really important to acknowledge the body in classrooms and in healing work. And I think he does a really great job of that. So those are people that I would love to uplift and just people who have inspired me. And I'd encourage people to do a deeper dive on them.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, both. And I would say, I just want everybody to know that this is a recorded video, so this live session, so you can always go back, and there's so much information we got and so much to re-listen to. I think it's worth a re-listen or a first listen, of course. So yeah, you can find that on our MAHUBE Facebook page. And again, thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for this conversation. There is a lot to listen to and to that I've learned. I've learned new things. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, MAHUBE. Thanks, people, for watching.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Bye.